Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer, and today we are going to take a look at Trey Lance's offseason progress. We are going to separate fact from fiction. Let's get to it. Trey Lance, a lot of talk this offseason about the increased work that he's been putting in. Spending time with Jeff Christensen out in Texas, working with Patrick Mahomes, really looking to rebuild that throwing motion. You remember now, Lance broke his finger during his rookie season in that final preseason game against the Las Vegas Raiders. That really impacted his ability to throw the ball and took a lot of things out of whack in terms of mechanics. So Lance been spending this offseason really trying to get back into the groove. You look at his numbers over the 4 practices that we were able to watch in Santa Clara. 35 of 55 overall. He had 1 interception. He had 3 touchdowns. Those coming in a red zone drill in a 7-on-7 portion of practice on the first day of minicamp. But again, 35 of 55, you look at those numbers overall, that's 63.6%. Okay, again, all that work that Lance has done, how does that compare to what he was last year? Well, during the 2022 offseason program, Lance completed 50 of 67 passes. He was at 74.6%. So you look at those 2 numbers and you're saying, wow, that's an 11% drop. Lance has taken a step back. But that's where we have to separate fact from fiction. The 49ers wide receiver room had a hard time catching the ball, not just the wide receivers, the tight ends and the running backs joined in on this as well. There were 13 total drops. Now 6 of those coming on throws from Trey Lance. So if you take the drops that Lance had go against him, throw those back into his numbers, he's at 41 to 55. And guess where his number is? 74.5%. So nearly the same number as where he was a season ago. Now, one of the things that you can look at this, and you can look at it a couple of different ways. You can say, it's still the same. He didn't really do much, didn't improve. I can see where you're coming from on that one. But at the same time, you got to remember, Trey Lance was not able to throw the ball for months. This is a guy who broke his ankle 2 weeks into the season, had to deal with coming back from that, unable to throw the ball, unable to walk for quite a while. Just really getting back into the swing of throwing around March, I think is when he was cleared, late February, beginning of March. For him to be able to go in there and match the numbers that he had last year, that's a good thing. That puts him right back in the same place that he was. Remember, Kyle Shanahan said that he felt like Trey Lance could have put up the same type of numbers as Brock Purdy did over the last part of the season if he had been healthy the whole way through. So for Lance to be right around that same range, not a bad deal at all. Now let's look at the 49ers quarterback competition and see where Lance fits into that. Sam Darnold, over these 4 practices, 38 of 53. He had a couple of touchdowns, didn't have any interceptions. He had one that was knocked down that was a near pick, but it wasn't intercepted. So overall, he was a little bit better there. If you add in the 6 drops that Sam Darnold incurred, he would have been at 83%. So about 8.5% better than Trey Lance. Looks good on paper until you start to break the numbers down and you look at what the 2 did when it came to team drills. They put the offensive linemen, defensive linemen in front of these quarterbacks a few times during OTAs, but during the minicamp, other than one session where each quarterback threw the ball 4 or 5 times, they were playing behind an offensive and defensive line. Overall, Trey Lance was 12 of 21 during that period. He had a couple of drops there as well. Sam Darnold, 11 of 19, and he also had a pair of drops. So you look at the overall numbers, Lance and Darnold in team situations with offensive alignment in front of them, pretty much tied in terms of their completion percentage. The 1 interception for Lance came during a team drill. Kerry Hyder able to get up and pick that off. So you look at this and you look at where Trey Lance is. There's a couple of ways, again, that you can even look at this. You can say, wow, Lance has been here for 2 years, going on to his 3rd off season, and he's not able to outperform a guy that just got here 2 months ago. That's very true. At the same time, Trey Lance is only going through his 3rd off-season program compared to the 6th for Sam Darnold. On top of that, Darnold is a guy who typically is going to show out during 7-on-7 type of play drills where he doesn't have pressure around him, and that's why you look at him getting 83% completion rating. He's really helped out by his performance there in the 7-on-7 portion. That's where the difference was. Like I said, they were pretty much neck and neck when it came to the team drills, both right around 57%, which just happens to be Trey Lance's career average, right around that 57% number. That's where he was last year in training camp. That's where he's been during regular season games in which he's played. You take all of his throws combined. The thing here, if you wanted to look at this quarterback situation, I would say this. I think Trey Lance comes into this ahead of Sam Darnold. Just because he's been here, the 49ers have a bigger investment in him. I think he comes into this ahead of Sam Darnold. I don't think he did anything to separate himself from Sam Darnold. I think they're both showed that they're about the same in terms of what they bring to the table. However, because Lance came in as the guy that was the leader in the clubhouse, I think he leaves as if you had to start a game tomorrow, he'd be the person that started over Sam Darnold. And that's the only reason why. And that's really unfortunate for Trey Lance. He has not yet been able to separate himself in any quarterback competition. In 2021, his rookie season, same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. Wasn't able to really separate himself. Wasn't able to really take the bull by the horns. When he got chances, he did really well early on in camp. And then as he started to get reps with the starters, kind of slid back a little bit. I think that's why you saw Garoppolo end up being the starting quarterback there in 2021. Last year, the injury knocked him out, and that's just a tough break. And so now for Lance, he needs to continue to grow. He needs to continue to show improvement. You know, you look back at his performance during this camp, and there were some really nice pieces. I think you saw a throwing motion where at times there was some improvement in terms of the flight of the ball, but then there were also other times where it wasn't. And that's the biggest thing with Lance, is it's been an inconsistency with him. And I don't think we saw him really show up better in terms of his consistency. I think that inconsistency is still there. You know, you saw him on Tuesday, we saw him complete 3 really nice passes at the end of team drills. I mean, you know, in my report after, I said that I felt like the Tuesday practice was the best we've seen of Trey Lance throughout the offseason program. But at the same time, you know, there's just throws that come up, you know, in days that follow, and even earlier in that day, that just kind of make you say, man, where's he going with the ball? But overall, I think it's a positive for Trey Lance. I think he's showing some growth. The fact that he's healthy, he had a somewhat decent finish during the last couple of days of minicamp. He goes into this offseason now. He has 40 days to really hone in on some things, and we'll see where he comes. The book's not written completely on Trey Lance. We'll see where Brock Purdy is as well in terms of his health. Because if he's not healthy, there's going to be a competition between Lance and Darnold to be that starter come week 1. So we'll see how it works out. But again, Lance, overall, 35 of 55, 63.6% completion rating throughout the offseason program, but that gets bumped up to 74.5% when you take away those drops. So not too bad. Just right in the middle there for Trey Lance in terms of the good versus the bad. So there you have it. Take it for what it's worth. If you can do me a favor, if you like what you see, please hit that like button, and also hit that subscribe button. And when you do subscribe, turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the new content that comes down right here on Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we talk with you soon.